All right, hello there, thrill seekers. Radical acceptance. It's the only approach that makes any sense. Let's talk about that after 18 short seconds of one of my favorite bass lines. Hello there, thrill seekers. That, of course, was The Pretenders' My City Was Gone. I went back to Ohio, and my city was gone. I know how she felt. She was talking about Akron, where I'm from. All right, a friend of mine recently sent me a text message talking about how he wanted, or he was preparing a talk to give at some Zen center that he was a part of about radical acceptance. And this got me thinking about my own, was I going to say struggles? Let's say struggles. My own struggles with radical acceptance. So I thought I'd talk about it. Now, as a lot of you know, have figured out by now, I am undergoing medical treatments for a potentially terminal disease, which I am told I will probably get through. And they think I'm going to live, so don't worry about that. The treatments I've been getting include chemotherapy and starting next week, radiation. So you can guess what the disease is if you want. I'm not going to say the name of it. That's because I think it might screw up the algorithms if I say the word. And also because I don't like saying it because I've had to say it so many times and had to hear it so many times over the past 8 months. I think it's been about 8 months. So I was first diagnosed with this thing in June, and the June of 2025, of course, June of 2026 hasn't happened yet. Anyway, June of 2025, when I went to the hospital for a kidney stone. And I've had kidney stones a lot, and even though it was quite painful and unpleasant, I wasn't really worried that much about it because I knew the drill with kidney stones. They just hurt a lot, and then they go away. Anyway. But when they did some scans down there, they found something, and I didn't like what they found. And this would be, almost as soon as I got this diagnosis, at least 2 people in my life were telling me, oh, you need to write a book about that and about how you overcome it with your power of Zen. And I'm like, I just got diagnosed. I haven't even undergone any treatments yet, let alone gotten over it. And you want me to start writing a book about it. So I'm talking about this a little sooner than I had initially planned. I wasn't going to say anything about it until it was all over and done with, but it seems like maybe at this juncture I can say a few things. Now, I would love to be able to tell you folks out there sitting at home that the power of Zen made me so calm and equanimous. I don't know even how to pronounce that word. They say that all the time. And that I was just like, oh, this is simply my karma. I must accept it. No, that is not what I did, folks. I freaked out aplenty. I had, I'd say, 3 major freakouts and maybe a handful of minor freakouts over the past 8 months where it just was just overwhelming and it was too much. And this is right from the start of this, they gave me a good prognosis. So they didn't quite catch it quite as early as one might have liked, but they did catch it early enough that there were treatments for it and that I'm expected to survive, as we say. Had I been told I had 10 days to live or something like that, I probably would have been even more freaked out. But anyway, it was bad enough the way it is. Now, years and years ago, I had read a book called Lotus in the Fire by, let me see who it's by. Okay, I looked it up. The book is by Jim Bedard or Bedard. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. And he was a practitioner in, I believe, some kind of Rinzai Zen. And he was diagnosed with a form of leukemia, and he was given 10 days to live initially. And the book, and he lived more than 10 days. The book came out in the late 1990s and was probably referring to events that happened, 5 or more years before. I know how long it takes to write a book and to get it out to publishers, so I have to assume it's at least 5 years, maybe 10 years before it was published. It was published about 5 or 10 years after the events it recounts. Okay. So, let's say sometime in the early to mid 90s, this must have happened. And the book is very harrowing. Harrowing is one of my favorite words. My wife can tell you about that. But it is literally harrowing. It is a hair-raising read, and he recounts in great, gory, grisly detail all the stuff that he went through and how his Zen practice helped him through it. And it must have helped him through it because I just before I made this video, I scrolled through the comments, and one of the commenters was mentioning that as of 2016, he apparently Jim Bedard had converted to another form of Buddhism and was no longer a Zen Buddhist. So much for the healing power of Zen, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. That's neither here nor there. Somebody wanted me to write one of those. Two people in my life wanted me to write one of those books. I'm not going to write one of those books. I might write about this, the stuff I've gone through, but I'm not gonna write one of those books about how the healing power of Zen. That's actually the subtitle of the book. Helped me get out of it. Mainly because I don't like those kind of books, and I find them a bit disingenuous sometimes. Although this book was really good, and I did like it, and in a way I'm glad I read it. But the thing is, I'd read that book with the very harrowing descriptions of chemotherapy and stuff like that, and then I sort of retroactively assumed that that's what I would be going through, not realizing that in the past 20 odd years since that book was written, things have advanced quite a bit. So it's not nearly, I don't know, maybe for some people it's as bad as what he talked about in the book, but I doubt for most people chemotherapy is as bad. It certainly wasn't as bad for me. But I was pretty freaked out, even with the prognosis that I wasn't. Is my shirt? No, my shirt's okay. Anyway, even with the prognosis that I wasn't going to die, I thought that I was going to go through some really awful stuff. So I was projecting all that and scared of it and just ruminating on it and everything else. I was doing all the things, So the idea that 40 odd years of Zen practice will get you not to do that, no. But I think I'm sure I did better having had 40 years of Zen practice before this than I would have had I not. I know that for certain because I know how much of a crazo hypochondriac I was in my youth, and I probably would have I probably would still be freaking out. I probably would be on the freak out train 24/7, and I'm not. But one of the things, or about the only thing that really, really helped, let's put it this way, maybe the thing that helped the most was this idea of radical acceptance. And it happened for me one night when I was up dealing with terrible insomnia. And by the way, chemotherapy has produced in me terrible insomnia. And this is amazing because I am the first person ever in the history of people who've gotten chemotherapy to have had chemotherapy cause insomnia. At least that's the impression I get when I talk to my doctors. They've never heard of this thing. Anyway, one of these sleepless nights, I was up and that phrase kind of appeared in my mind, radical acceptance, and I realized, oh, that is the only sensible option, or the only sensible approach, let's say it that way, to this is radical acceptance. And I don't really like that phrase, radical acceptance, because it sounds silly to me, but the idea is total acceptance. Like, I just have to accept this fully. Now, accepting it fully doesn't mean being complacent. And I wrote an article. My friend who sent me that text, I don't think he knows what I'm going through with my illness because I haven't really told a lot of people. I've told you guys in the YouTube world, but I haven't told a lot of people who I know closely. But anyway, he was looking for an article of mine called Buddhism. What the hell is it called? The religion. Oh God, a religion that teaches you not to give an F word. And it was an article I wrote for my blog years and years ago, like 10 or more years ago, I guess. And it was based on this meme that was going around with this buck-toothed Buddhist monk, and he looks a little bit silly, and the meme says, Buddhism, the religion about not giving an F word. And in that article, I used the F word a lot because in those days I was using it. And by the way, I feel entitled to say buck-toothed because in my youth I was incredibly buck-toothed. I'll see if I can find a picture. I probably don't have any because I used to hide it all the time. Anyway, whatever. I had this or you can still see it a little bit. I had this extreme overbite, just like this guy did in the picture, and he apparently didn't get it fixed in his youth, so he still has it in his elder age, and mine's coming back. Anyway, whatever. So in that article was about how Buddhism isn't really a religion about not giving an F. It doesn't give an F about a lot of things that a lot of people and a lot of other religions do. Like it doesn't care so much what you believe in, and there's a lot of other things it doesn't care what who you date. It doesn't care about your sexual orientation and things like that. But it is not a religion of complacency, which is what I think this meme makes it sound like. It's not. In my case, as soon as I got this diagnosis, I went out and I'm starting to do whatever they tell me I need to do about it, all the doctors and things, and I'm doing all the things. And now I've been reading stuff about diet and the exercise and all this other stuff, so I'm doing all the things. So that's not a complacent attitude, but it doesn't make any sense to not accept it. So those freakouts I had were kind of my unacceptance of what I've been told about the illness that I had. So, I wasn't ready to accept it. I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to think about it and go through it, and et cetera, et cetera. And then one sleepless night when I was dealing with the insomnia and everything else and all the fear and all the other stuff that was going on, I realized it doesn't make any sense. And really, it's kind of, I could make this video a minute long and say everything that I want to say, because really the point of radical acceptance is it's the only approach that makes any sense. Because if you don't accept what's going on in your life, you're just creating cognitive noise. You're just creating noise in your mind of your mind fighting what's going on, and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't help in any way. But again, it's not complacency. You accept what's going on, and then by accepting what's going on, you can reduce your stress level quite a bit. That's what happened to me. And by reducing your stress level quite a bit, you can start to see what needs to be done to take care of whatever it is that you were not able to accept when you first came across this, whatever it was. In my case, a potentially terminal disease. So I accept it. I can see it in the scheme of things as being not as bad as a lot of things. For example, the way my mother died of a very different terminal disease was much worse. And if I'd gotten the diagnosis of having that disease, I'd probably be freaking out way worse because that was awful. But of course, it's not as good as somebody who doesn't get this at all. That's what I want to be. I want to be the guy who doesn't get this disease at all. But I'm not the guy who doesn't get this disease at all. I'm a guy who gets the disease. And now I have to do something about it. And what I had to do was, so far, about 4 or 5 months of chemotherapy, which, if you guys were watching the videos, the chemotherapy started in August. Is that right? Yeah. And then ended in December. So all of my videos between August of 2025 and December were done while going through chemotherapy. So I figured out what I had to do in order to keep the videos going, which is I realized because of the schedule of my treatments that Mondays were usually the day that I felt best, which doesn't mean I felt good, but at least I felt like I was among the living again by Monday, because the treatments always happened basically on a Tuesday, and they were usually spread 2 weeks apart. So I got through it by only taping on Mondays and then putting my videos out on. I used to put the videos out the day that I recorded them. These days I record them at least one day in advance. So I started recording them as many days in advance as I had to make Monday work. So it's usually Monday, and then I put them out on Wednesday. Anyway, and so by Wednesday, when I was clicking on the thingies to put the videos out, I was just probably like, boom, okay. That's how I was at the time the videos were coming out and you were seeing them most weeks. But when I was making the videos, I felt okay. So, the things like that, just figuring out how to keep my source of livelihood, which these videos are, going, how to apply for various kinds of government assistance and things. I did that too. We're still waiting on that to happen. We'll see. But yeah, so that was the way that I managed to settle down enough. And I don't, as I said, I don't want to write the book eventually where I'm like, the shining knight in shining armor and everything's great. And by the way, that book I referenced, Lotus in the Fire, is not one of those. He does talk about how there were certain mystical aspects of Zen which he discovered were true. And I'll tell you one of them because I thought it was fascinating. He went into a coma at some point. I think he did it a few times in the course of his treatment. And he was in a coma for like a week or 2 weeks or something like that. And he woke up from this coma having a memory of hearing people chanting. And he found out that his temple and a bunch of related temples to the one he was going to were chanting healing mantras on his behalf. And he talks about some of the other things that happened in a coma where he encountered some sort of a deity of some sort. He encountered what he thought in his coma, and he was in this weird place, and he met this crippled old man, and he was trying to see what he could do for this crippled old man. And then later on he saw a statue, and that crippled old man was the very image of this sort of healing deity of some sort. I really don't remember the details, and I'm not going to reread that book, I'll tell you that. Once was enough, but it was, like I said, a pretty good book. So he talks about that. I haven't had any experiences comparable to that. I wish I could tell you something that I had, but I did have the experience of being in the middle of the night, 3 a.m, or whatever it was, when I couldn't get to sleep, of going radical acceptance. That's what I've got to do. I've just got to accept this fully. And that's it. That's the only approach. Like I said, I think that's the third time I've said it in this video, and it's really all I want to say. It's the only approach that makes sense. If you're fighting against reality, you're going to lose. And that's what I realized. I'm just going to fight a losing battle against the reality of my situation, or accept my situation and do something about it. And that's the road I am trying to go on these days, is trying to accept it and trying to do what is necessary about it. And I don't know if I can say any more than that about radical acceptance. This is another reason I don't want to write a book about it, because until I have enough perspective, which means until I've been through all of the treatments, which I've still got 3 major things left to go in my treatments, although I'm told that none of these 3 major things are as bad as the chemotherapy, so I hope that's correct. But I still got 3 major things to get through, 2 surgeries and radiation. So I'm not ready to write that book, and I won't be ready to write that book until maybe a couple of years after, assuming I survive, and that's what they think is going to happen, to write that book. So yeah, there wasn't any great miraculous thing, but as I say, it was better. Having had 40 years of meditation practice and knowing what to do with thoughts that I don't like having helped a tremendous amount. I can't overstress how much that helped. But the idea of it producing kind of a miracle cure, or everything is wonderful, I don't know. There might be people for whom that happens, but they aren't me. So I'm still struggling with this, and I'm still struggling with radical acceptance. There are times when I just still don't want to accept it, and then I have to remember, well, that doesn't help, because the unacceptance of it is just trying to push away something that's actually there that you can't possibly push away. Trying to push away myself in a way. And that's not going to work. So radical acceptance, as I said 4 times already, is the only sensible way to live. Okay, that's it. That's all I got to say about that. I wish I had more to say about that, but that's it. All right, if you want to donate to me with my ongoing difficulties, you can go to the URL that you're going to see on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. That's where you can find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my only way of making a living right now, especially because I had to cancel an entire European tour because of this illness and everything else. So I really appreciate your support. But as always, you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. It's completely up to you. All right, we will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. I said radical acceptance helped me, Ziggy, but you helped me a lot too. Just by being cuddly and nice and friendly. You're really empathetic. I keep telling people that, but it's true. All right, go sleep in your sunbeam some more. We'll talk to you later. Bye.